Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Well, the obvious news of the day is the DOJ memo that says that there's no Jeffrey Epstein client list and that he died of suicide. There's also reactions to Musk's New America Party, and the search continues in Texas after the devastating flood. Okay, let's get into it. According to a memo by the Department of Justice and the FBI, Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide and he had no client list. The memo also stated that there would be no further disclosure of any material related to the Jeffrey Epstein criminal case. The news about the memo actually was first reported by Axios on Sunday when they published about the internal memo, and then the DOJ and the FBI published the memo today. And during a press conference today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt also confirmed the memo.
DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death, and they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
The review found that Epstein committed suicide in his cell while he was awaiting trial in August of 2019. This is reportedly consistent with the autopsy that was conducted at the time. The memo said that the conclusion that Epstein died by suicide is further supported by video footage from the common area of the special housing unit where Epstein was housed at the time of his death. The review also found that Epstein did not keep a list of clients as part of his sex trafficking activity. Additionally, according to the memo, there was no evidence that Epstein blackmailed individuals. But according to the review, Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims as each suffered unique trauma. The Epstein files contain images of videos of those who appear to be minors and of illegal child sex abuse material and other pornography, all viewed while maintaining the privacy of victims. So most of the files are under seal. The memo said only a fraction of this material would have been aired publicly had Epstein gone to trial, as the seal served only to protect victims and did not expose any additional third parties to allegations of illegal wrongdoing. So obviously there will be many reactions to this, and a lot of people are already upset. So let's not get too bent out of shape and let's just wait to see what happens next. As of Monday, the heavy rains that caused flooding in Kerr County in the Guadalupe River area of Texas on Friday have unfortunately left at least 95 people dead. And the heartbreaking story of the missing children from Camp Mystic has left the country mourning. The river reached its second highest level on record early on Friday morning, and officials declared a state of disaster. Kerr County is located in west central Texas, in the heart of the Texas Hill area. Because of its steep topography, the area is susceptible to flash flooding with fast-flowing water flowing down the slopes into the Guadalupe River basin. Although the National Weather Service placed Kerr County under a flood warning in advance, this flood occurred during the night and it was far more severe than expected. Water levels in the Guadalupe River rose about 8 meters in just 45 minutes. It flooded homes and camps along the river. Several camps, including the Christian summer camp, Camp Mystic, took the brunt of the flooding, with most of the people who have died coming from the camp. Camp Mystic had about 750 girls at the time of the flood. As of Sunday, at least 28 of the deceased have been confirmed to be children, and there are dozens that remain unaccounted for, including 10 girls from a summer camp on the river. Kerr County Sheriff Larry Letha announced during a press conference on Sunday morning that search and rescue efforts continue. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said that he has directed all state agencies that are involved in the operation to make saving lives a top priority, and he declared Sunday a statewide day of prayer. Abbott said in a statement, "I urge every Texan to join me in prayer this Sunday for the lives lost, for those still missing, and for the recovery of our communities and for the safety of those on the front lines." Then on Sunday, President Trump signed a major disaster declaration specifically for Kerr County to ensure that the first responders have the resources they need. FEMA was activated in Texas, and they will work with Texas state and local authorities to aid in the search and rescue efforts. President Trump also said that he would probably travel to Texas on Friday to survey areas of the state that have experienced dangerous flash flooding. In addition, the United States Coast Guard continues to provide help in Hill County. Homeland Security says they are flying helicopters and thermal airplanes to help with search and rescue efforts. And on the heels of this great disaster, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene plans to introduce a bill that prohibits the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals or substances into the atmosphere for the express purpose of weather modification. She says that it will be similar to Florida's Senate Bill 56. But with the death toll in Texas now exceeding that of Hurricane Harvey, many are questioning why there was no warning system in place and why Camp Mystic in Kerr County failed to evacuate while others did manage to evacuate on time. On Wednesday and Thursday, a series of emergency weather alerts were issued by the National Weather Service, or the NWS, and by the Texas Division of Emergency Management, or the TDEM. Despite a decades-long history of flash floods in Texas Hill County, Kerr County did not have an emergency warning system in place. The Austin-San Antonio office of the NWS issued a flood watch on Wednesday for several counties, including Kerr County. That same day, the San Angelo office also issued a flood watch for additional counties. Also on Wednesday, TDEM activated their state emergency response resources across 10 state agencies in anticipation of increased flood threats in West and Central Texas ahead of the holiday weekend. And on Thursday, TDEM escalated emergency operations readiness, and they deployed additional resources. Then on Friday, the NWS San Antonio office issued a life-threatening flash flooding warning for Bandera and Kerr counties. The agency had 5 staff members on duty, which was more than the usual 2, in order to ensure accurate forecasts for the region. AccuWeather, which also issued reports on Thursday, cited the NWS alert, and they stated, "These warnings should have provided officials with ample time to evacuate camps such as Camp Mystic and get people to safety." Reportedly, county officials did not issue any warnings until 4 hours after the initial NWS alerts, by which time an untold number of people had already been swept away. At a Friday news conference, Kerr County Judge Rob Kelly said that he did not know why Camp Mystic or other camps in the county weren't evacuated. When a reporter asked, "Why weren't these camps evacuated?" Judge Kelly responded, "I can't answer that. I don't know." He added that no one anticipated flooding of this magnitude. Judge Kelly said, "We have floods all the time. This is the most dangerous river valley in the United States, and we deal with floods on a regular basis. When it rains, we get water. We had no reason to believe that this was going to be anything like what's happened." On Sunday, Judge Kelly stated that several years ago, before he took office, county officials had considered implementing a flood warning system similar to tornado sirens, but it was never put into place. Last year, the Texas House sought to address failures in crisis communications at both the local and state levels. After the disastrous response to the Panhandle wildfires, the Texas House launched an investigation and they proposed several reforms. Senator Phil King introduced a bill that would have provided grant funding for rural emergency alert systems and improved communications among first responders. The bill passed the House with bipartisan support, but it ultimately died in the Senate Finance Committee. So it remains unclear why Camp Mystic did not evacuate the children on Thursday following the initial warnings from the NWS and the TDEM. President Trump signed the Big Beautiful Bill on July 4th, and one of the provisions of this bill is that beginning on January 1st, 2026, a 1% remittance tax will be imposed on citizens and non-citizens who send money overseas. This remittance tax was adjusted by the House and Senate, so the scope of its impact has been substantially narrowed for immigrants, but for some immigrants, it has still aroused much concern. Since these are funds that will be taken away from the U.S. economy, the U.S. federal government has imposed a remittance tax on personal transfers, primarily on funds that are transferred abroad from the U.S. by immigrants. The House version of this provision applied only to all non-U.S. citizens. The Senate version was adjusted to apply to citizens and non-citizens alike. But to some immigrants, the amount of such remittances may seem huge. The Overseas Development Institute, which is a British think tank, says that the amount of such remittances is 3 to 4 times the total amount of U.S. foreign aid. In 2023, remittances from the U.S. to the rest of the world were estimated to have reached $656 billion, while foreign aid totals were about $224 billion over the same period. India stands as the world's top remittance recipient. Other major recipients include Mexico, China, the Philippines, France, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. But the potential impact of the remittance tax, as finally enacted, has been significantly reduced from the House's May version. In addition to reducing the tax rate from 5% to 1%, the provision also exempts remittances from bank and security accounts, as well as credit and debit cards that are issued in the United States. In principle, the tax is limited to remittances in the form of cash and money orders. This means that a large portion of everyday remittances are excluded from paying remittance tax. Even so, one study found that the new remittance tax could significantly reduce remittances to countries that send immigrants to the United States. According to the World Bank, in 2024, India received international remittances totaling $129 billion, which was the highest in the world. Nearly 30% of this comes from the United States. The Global Trade Research Initiative said, the proposed U.S. tax on remittances sent abroad by non-citizens is raising alarms in India, which stands to lose billions in annual foreign currency inflows. Prior to the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill, Elon Musk threatened to start a new political party once the bill was signed. Musk also threatened to put money into bringing down Republican legislators who supported the bill in next year's midterm elections. And as promised, on Saturday, Musk announced on X the formation of the America Party. He posted, "When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the America Party is formed to give you back your freedom." This post came shortly after a July 4th themed poll on X where Musk asked, "Should we create the America Party?" 1.2 million Americans participated in his poll. 65.4% said yes, whereas 34.6% said no. So the richest man in the world announced the formation of a new political party. But Elon Musk didn't release details about the America Party, such as who is the party chair and how many people are there and what is the agenda. How he plans to use this new party to influence the political landscape of the United States is still uncertain. His thinking so far seems to be relatively simple. In a post, Musk explained, one way to execute on this would be to laser focus on just 2 or 3 Senate seats and 8 to 10 House districts. Given the razor-thin legislative margins, that would be enough to serve as the deciding vote on contentious laws, ensuring that they serve the true will of the people. This plan sounds easy to implement, but what about the reality? The Washington Post lists several obstacles that Elon Musk's new party will face. First, Musk faces the systemic barrier. The American electoral system is not friendly to the third party. Hans Noel, an associate professor of American political science at Georgetown University, talked about the lack of institutional conditions in the United States that would allow a multi-party system or a third party to operate successfully. Political parties must win a majority in order to make a difference. This is unlike other democracies where it's possible to start with a small party, get 20 or 30% of the vote, and then allocate a number of congressional seats, and then gradually expand its power. There's a very complicated process just for a third-party person to be placed on the ballot in all 50 states. We can recall that RFK Jr. was fighting to be put on the ballot in every state during the general election last year. To qualify for the ballot, it would require a large number of voters to co-sign. Of course, Musk may have enough money to accomplish those requirements. Secondly, historically, public support for political parties other than the two major ones has been limited. Look at the 80-year history of the United States from World War II to the present. No one from any third party has ever been elected to the federal House of Representatives, much less the Senate. The so-called independents in Congress are now all leftist Democrats. The Free Will Party, the Green Party, doesn't have a single member in Congress. So it would be hard for Musk to form a third party with plans to take 8 to 10 seats in the House and 2 to 3 in the Senate. It will be even harder to win the presidential election. The last time a presidential candidate who was not a Republican or Democrat won some electoral vote was in 1968. At that time, George Wallace, the candidate of the American Independent Party, won the electoral votes of 5 southern states. Billionaire Ross Perot, who ran for president of the United States in 1992, received 19% of the popular vote, and this was a remarkable achievement, but he did not become the most voted candidate in any state, and in the end, he did not even have one electoral vote. Mac McCorkle, a professor at Duke University's Sanford School of Public Policy, said that Musk-endorsed candidates may not win the election, but they would play the role of spoilers and disruptors in the race, weakening the Republican candidate's chances. In addition, McCorkle mentioned that Musk's opposition to the big and better bill is not enough to constitute a long-term party strategy. This, coupled with the fact that Musk's companies have numerous contracts with the federal government, may also undermine the legitimacy of his claims. After all, he is one of the businessmen with the most government contracts in the United States. But it's not true to say that Musk hasn't given any thought to his party platform. Musk appeared to agree with the party's platform vision that was put forward by a user on X, which included reducing the national debt, modernizing the military with artificial intelligence and robotics, supporting deregulation and freedom of speech, advocating a stance in favor of science and technology, raising the birth rate, and maintaining a centrist approach in other policies. Of course, Musk is a very smart man. He may have thought of some ways to deal with it. And he has previously hinted at focusing on a handful of districts with key influence to sway the overall makeup of Congress. But he has not yet named specific target districts. However, Hans Noel thinks that this doesn't mean Musk has a real base. It's hard to say who he's really appealing to. Noel points out that despite Musk's wealth, the key to a successful political party is still building a solid network of supporters, and that fundraising, mobilization, and vote catching all depend on connecting with voters. And Musk's influence in the Republican Party seems to be waning after his falling out with the party. Musk has a strong personality, and he is known for breaking the mold and setting extremely high goals. But getting into politics, especially campaigning, requires extreme patience. Many wonder if Elon Musk would be able to endure the cumbersome sequence of procedures to get candidates qualified for election. And how will he screen candidates? There's bound to be a bunch of self-important newcomers vying to nominate themselves. So if he rushes in and lets too many people stand for election, the end result may not be good. But Musk has learned firsthand the limits of money in politics earlier this year. He poured more than $20 million into funding Wisconsin conservatives for a seat on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, but in the end, it was still won by a liberal candidate. Of course, it's also possible that Elon may spend his whole life trying to form a political party. After all, he did spend years building up SpaceX. So far, President Trump's response to Musk's formation of a new party was, have fun.
Reaction to Elon Musk starting a third party?
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party. The Democrats have lost their way, but it's always been a two-party system. And I think starting a third party just adds to confusion. It really seems to have been developed for two parties. Third parties have never worked. So he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggests that Musk should focus on building better companies.
The principles of DOJ were very popular. I think if you looked at the polling, Elon was not. So I believe that the boards of directors at his various companies wanted him to come back and run those companies, which he is better at than anyone. So I imagine that those board of directors did not like this announcement yesterday and will be encouraging him to focus on his business activities, not his political activities.
Yesterday, President Trump also posted a lengthy post on Truth Social and criticized Musk for going off the rails. President Trump suggested that Musk was upset over the repeal of the federal EV mandate. He also expressed concern about the influence of Musk on NASA appointments. Of course, there will always be some people who agree with the idea that Musk is upset about the cancellation of the EV mandate and others who don't. David Lee has been a Tesla investor since 2012. He also has a YouTube channel on investing. He responded to President Trump's post on X and claimed that someone close to President Trump, and particularly VP Vance, should clarify that Musk's concern isn't the EV mandate, but rather he's upset about the $5 trillion increase in federal debt over the next 2 years. Musk replied to the post by saying 100%. Musk also questioned the goal of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOJ, if the bill is going to add $5 trillion to the federal debt. These recent comments by Musk came as DOJ announced on Friday that 54 federal contracts would be terminated over the next 2 days. DOJ claimed that $804 million in savings from the canceled contracts that were originally valued at $1.8 billion. Among the canceled agreements were an $842,000 USAID position in Armenia and a $33,000 broadcasting contract in Togo, West Africa. This recent savings by DOJ followed the shutdown of USAID by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And on July 1st, Rubio criticized the ineffective foreign aid spending by USAID, and he closed the organization. Since launching its initiative, DOJ claims to have saved $190 billion through contract cancellations, fraud reductions, and asset sales, which amounts to roughly $1,180 per taxpayer. This also means that DOJ has managed to hit the goal of saving $1 billion a day. And DOJ continues to operate after Musk's departure in May, after his term as a special government employee expired. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.